Did you ever want to toss one back with Kerouac? Get a little smashed with Ogden Nash. Start to read with Danielle Steele. Slosh some gin with Anna Eastman. It's time to get lit-faced while you are day drinking with authors.
I hope it worked. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the third Day Drinking with Authors. And I feel like every time we do this, like there's a little technical glitch right at the last minute that just makes you feel alive. Today is a really special day. I'm so excited about my guest today. New York Times bestselling author Tracy Wolff, I've known for a long time, and she's just having a moment, and it's really exciting to watch. So without further ado, let's introduce my buddy. Here we go. Tracy! How you doing?
It feels like it's been forever. I think it has been a little while, but it has been forever since we've had a chance to talk. So I'm very excited.
I'm excited to see you. I feel like I tell our origin story as like we were two young girls lost on a dance floor searching for the right theater nerd.
Exactly, searching for the other dancing nerd. And then we found each other.
The dancers parted. There we were.
That sounds about right.
That's about
from
right.
what I remember.
Yeah. So before we get talking, let's talk about our cocktail. Are you enjoying one right now?
I am enjoying one right now. You have your pretty martini glass. I just have my, hot pink glass because that's how I roll.
I mean, fancy. Just as long as it's fancy. And that is truly one thing you are, is fancy. I will say that.
Well, thank you. High maintenance, maybe? Might be the better term. I don't know. We were talking earlier, right, about the castle and Crave, and my editor asking me once, like, why does it have to be like a bordello? And I'm like, because, I mean, if I'm going to do a castle, I might as well do it the way I do a castle. And, apparently I want it to look like a whorehouse.
Your question back to her is, why isn't everything a bordello? Like, why isn't...
Right? Why is everything not a bordello? Why would it not?
So I want to remind everybody who's listening that if you ask some questions, Tracy is very generously offering some ebooks, copies of Crave. I don't know how many, so just, keep asking.
There you go. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Mary Margaret. Oh, Mary Margaret. It's good to see you.
That's amazing. So we've got to talk about what's going on with Crave. I mean, I know that it's always different inside, inside the sphere, but from the outside, it just really looks like you are having some fun. So can you tell us about the movie thing?
Yeah, I am having actually a lot of fun. It's interesting, you're right, because you get lost in the sphere and you're just like doing like I'm writing the next book and I'm, trying to keep up with, all the stuff that I have to keep up with. And it seems like, oh, is anything even going on? Is even like anybody even seeing it? But people like you tell me they are, so then I get excited. But yeah, we were really, really so excited. We sent the book out on February 18th to several different studios and producers and that kind of thing. And on February 19th, Universal came back with basically a preemptive deal. They were like, yeah, no, I don't want you talking to anybody else. We just want this and we want it. So this is what we're going to do. We were like, oh my God. And the film agent was like, oh my God. Like, okay, you can have it. Absolutely, you can have it. Feel free.
Throw cards on the wall. This is how it's going.
Right, yeah. And it was really interesting because a couple producers came back like the next day and were interested in it. And we're like, sorry, already gone. Right? Sorry, you took 2 days. Sorry. No, so it was really exciting. With the movie, you never know, right? You never know how it's going to go. I remember one editor, I was sitting at a panel very, very early on when I was young and I was watching, right, the panel. And it was, I want to say it was like Melissa Marr, Charlene Harris. I mean, it was some big wigs. But one of the editors had said, I never count on a movie till I'm walking down the red carpet. And even then, I'm afraid they're going to close the theater doors. And okay, so that's kind of the advice that I'm taking, that I'm super thrilled that they're really excited about it, and that they're, doing things like behind the scenes that like seem really positive. But I'm also like, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and who knows what's going to happen.
Who knows
and if
what's
they're
going
going to
to
be able to make a movie again.
Yeah, right. Oh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
So I'm trying to
take
my enthusiasm.
So there's also like a video game.
Yes, it's actually that online app called Chapters. I don't know if you guys know it.
Yeah,
it's super cool. They bought a couple of my other things. Still haven't made them or whatever, but they we had sent them Crave, and they had fallen in love with it, bought it, and put it out on release day. And I think they just finished the last chapters, but that's been so much fun because it's the first time I've been able to watch my world come alive outside of my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh my gosh, there's the castle. Oh my gosh, there's the chandelier. Oh my gosh, there's the uniform. So that's pretty cool.
That is amazing. And I have to say, it's always exciting watching good things happen to your friends. But you're an author who's had moments in the past, but I gotta say, this is really sweet for me to watch, because there were years there where you were the hardest working woman in show business. You were saying yes to every contract. You were writing for 4 different publishing houses
at one point. Yeah.
And writing and teaching, right? Like you told me the story about handing in, like you would write a page to a book and then email it to the editor, and the editor would then fax you the revisions. That's how tight it was.
That's how tight it was a couple times, yeah.
A couple times. I guess once you get used to that kind of thing, you're like, this is how it goes.
I don't know, right? Because after, now I look back on it and I think, what the hell, right? What was I thinking? What was I doing? But yeah, I guess you do what you got to do, right?
Do what you got to do.
I have a funny story there. Do you know Sherry Thomas? Sherry Thomas, do you know her?
Yes.
She's like one of my closest friends, and one day she's in the elevator and she's bitching like shit about who I'm like. Tracy Wolff's agent was like insane to let her take these contracts on, blah 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 blah, and she's in the elevator with my agent. Hi, I would be the insane one. Nice to meet you, Sherry. And Sherry was like, well, it's not like I wouldn't say it to your face. So yeah, you were nuts.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, I'm sorry.
But that was probably 4 or 5 years. Was it longer than that? Like you were really hustling. It
was about 4 or 5 years. I was hustling.
So cheers to you and success.
Thank you. Cheers to you.
All around.
I'm 65. This Crave is 65. So $65 in. So what number are you on?
Like 50. 50
yeah,
something.
I know you have a ton too. I love them. You're like one of my favorite authors.
Oh, really. That's sweet of you. You have to say that.
One of my dear friends.
Well, I want to real quickly, for those of you who don't know what Crave is, and we're getting some good questions. I see that Ariana, hello. Hey, Sylvia, Sharon, Demetra. Oh my gosh, Katie Scanlon's good to see you. So for those of you who don't know, Crave is a YA, so it's a young adult vampire romance. I mean, we can definitely call it a romance, yeah?
Yeah.
But the crazy thing, that I feel like the lightning in a bottle part of it is that you do get some of that like classic vampire romance, some of the, delicious juice from Vampire Diaries and Twilight and all of the greats that have gone before. But then you also add this like Harry Potter element where they're all off at boarding school. Damn.
Well, I've always what you gonna do? I have to tell you though, the name of the school, Catmere Academy. I've only said this like once publicly, and nobody's ever caught it, but it's totally my homage to Harry Potter, because Hogwarts, my son, is Warthog, right? And Catmere is Meerkat, so it's like Lion King, Holly, Harry Potter homage.
Nice.
That's literally where the name. What?
Has anybody caught on to that?
No, nobody's conduit. And my editor made me take the S off because she didn't like the way it sounded with the S. And I was like, okay, well, so meerkat instead of meerkat or cat mears. Because she's like, is it cat mearus? Is it? And I'm like, fine, I'll just take the S off if that makes you feel better. But yeah, that was totally what it was. It was my homage to Hogwarts.
That's amazing. So did the idea of the boarding house, did it come together like at the same time, in tandem, or were you writing a YA vampire romance and then suddenly were like, boarding school, yes? Like, how did that
actually? Crave kind of came a little differently. I've always wanted to write a vampire novel, but I'd always been like, it had already been done so well. Like, I don't know if I can do it. You know what I mean? Like J.R. Ward, Rachel Kane. Like,
yeah, there's a good list.
Sterling Kenyon. There's some great lists. There's some great people. Twilight, obviously. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. But I'd always wanted to. And then actually, my publisher at Entangled, Liz Pelletier, came to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in writing a vampire romance? I think it's time. You want to do it?" And I was like, "Well, if you think I can do it, sure. I want to do it. I want to try." And I said, I've always wanted to write a boarding school romance. Like, I've tried like 4 or 5 different kinds, and they're all like on my hard drive. And I'm like, I've always wanted to do it at a boarding school. So can I do that? And she's like, yeah, I love the idea of a vampire boarding school. Let's do it. And Crave was born. And it was actually the crazy thing is I realized I got a notification on Facebook the other day, a picture of me at my cousin's wedding. And the reason that was so funny was the day before my cousin's wedding, I was literally turning in a book and I got this phone call and said, "Hey, do you want to write this vampire romance?" The thing is, literally 1 year ago, like a week ago, do you, I know, do you, but the thing is, we had a book fall out and we'd really like to slide it into that slot in April. Do you think you could do it? And I was like, yeah, I can do it. It was a little rough. I'm not going to lie. There were a couple times Liz and I literally sat on the phone and cried. But but we did it. And literally from a year from when it was conceived is when it came out. Like a year minus 1 week. Pretty crazy, huh?
It is. It is. And I think your whole story is kind of the power of yes, right? It is the power of yes. And like, for sure, you had to be scared. Like,
terrified.
Yeah, but doing it anyway. And that knowing that like the fear is kind of part of what makes it, it's special if you're scared.
Yeah. I will say when I said yes, I did not realize it was going to be 160,000 words. If I'd known it was going to be 160,000 words, I've read 2 books. I might have been a little more scared than I was. But I was like, I can do a book. Yeah, I could do a book in like 3 months. I can do that. That's no problem. And then, and then it became this monster that it is.
So the length of the book, for those who might not know, like, traditionally published books are, between 80 and 100,000 words. YA sometimes can skew shorter, except when they're epic, obviously, and you like stepped right into the epic part of it. So how much were you planning? And then
I think I was planning about 100,000 words because I always write long. Like I think my contract said 80. And like I laughed and I said, it's going to be like 100 because it's always 100. It just always is, whether I want it to be or not. Writing for Harlequin was always a difficult for me, right? Because especially the 2 desires I did. They actually ran them from the top of the page to the bottom with almost no margins. When I did the 2 desires, they were like, "We can't cut anything out." And I'm like, "I know, I'm sorry."
So, I understand that Liz came to you, but what was there just something in the air? Like, why vampires? Like, and
she was determined. I know, right? We got so freaking lucky. Like, it's really interesting because I had been thinking about vampires again. I always say my superpower is I'm always a little too early. That's my superpower. Like my mermaids came a couple months before mermaids were really back. My Armageddon book came Cyber Armageddon a few months before those were really back. And so I always miss it by just a little bit, right? And so she says, I want to bring vampires back. And I was like, well, I'm for it because I think they're coming. And she's like, yeah, I feel like they're coming too. So let's just do this. And we just timed it like exactly somehow. That is all Liz's superpower. That is not my superpower. As I said, I always go do which sounds really dirty. Liz, just is a genius. And we got it right there. And it seems like vampires are exploding around us. And Stephanie Meyer just came in with Midnight Sun, which is super exciting. So yeah.
It was funny. My Twitter feed and my Facebook feed went from like sort of the existential screaming that we're all doing to like, oh my God, Midnight Sun is. It was awesome to see so many readers and writers so excited, like out. I mean, we need to be excited about books, and it was great to see that. So what? Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's so funny. We were sitting at like #1 of like a bunch of categories on Amazon and have been for like a month, right? And Midnight Sun came out, and boom, they're like, see you later.
Yeah, you're toast.
What are you talking about? I'm like, that's okay. I'll take it. That's fine. I'm good. I'll be behind.
Yeah, if you're going to get unseated, might as well be by the.
That's right. By Stephanie Meyer, I can take that. I'll be like just grateful to be in her shadow.
So when you're writing, like, do you feel like you had a good handle on what readers want in a vampire romance? I mean, do you have a sense of was it a surprise? Like what do you feel like readers want? What did you tap into?
Well, excuse me as I drop my earring down my bra. Always something when you're live. I feel like I have a good handle on I guess to a certain extent, because I know what I like to read, right? I love J.R. Ward. I love Sherilyn Kenyon. I loved Twilight. I read it like crack. Breaking Dawn came out. I remember RWA weekend in San Francisco, and that's what I did one whole day at RWA San Francisco, sit in my room and read Breaking Dawn. So I feel like yeah, you've got to handle what are they looking for when they come for vampires. I think it's really interesting because I think readers of paranormal, like 10 years ago was when paranormal had the big boom, right? It's been gone about 10 years. And I feel like they've grown a lot more, and this is something even Universal was saying on our call the other day, like readers and watchers have grown a lot more sophisticated in what they're looking for in storytelling, particularly in paranormal stories. So I think that one of the things that is always such a thing when you're dealing with vampire romance, for example, is consent, and like dealing with consent after Me Too and in that era, is I think hugely NYA, right? It's always been hugely important to me. I've raised three boys, and like the poor babies have been dragged in front of the like computer like all the time. Every time there's a horrible story, like, look, this is not what you do to a woman. Do you understand me? This is not how this works. So like balancing that, I think, was really important. I was really excited to be able to do a diverse cast in this one, because I know that not all of the vampire romances that have come before have necessarily been diverse, and so that was a lot of fun. But I think it was really a lot of fun to mix things around and play with the vampire myth, and also be able to bring my own stuff to it, because I always said I wouldn't do it if I didn't think I could bring something new to it, because it's been done so well, right? Why redo old ground if you can't do it better, or not better, I mean, not to be arrogant, but like if you can't do something different.
Like why just copy can't bring something new?
Yeah, so I think they're looking for big worlds. I mean, and that's one of the things you commented with Crave. They've been reading fantasy for several years, YA particularly. Game of Thrones was such a big thing, obviously, and I think they're just really looking for a bigger world for their vampires to be in, and I'm hoping that that's what I've given them. Certainly by the time we get to the end of the
bordello.
It really looks like a bordello. A bigger world that looks like a bordello. I mean, really, what more can anybody ask for?
And here comes Tracy Wolff.
Here comes Tracy Wolff. Right, sliding right on into that spot that nobody even knew was available. Nobody thought.
So you've written obviously a lot of adult romance and a lot of YA romance, and reading this one, it feels like kind of an older aged YA, just some of the language. So what was your thought about that going into it? And do you edit? Do you write as you write and then edit it out, or are you thinking like, I'm writing this for a teenage audience, and this is how it will go? How does your process between writing YA and adult books differ?
To be honest, NA, new adult, right, is my sweet spot. I realized during the new adult boom several years ago that I've just always been there, right? That's just always been my favorite thing. Like all my favorite movies, whether it's Cutting Edge or Grease or Good Will Hunting, they all just exist in that time period, right? Yeah. And I'm like, Okay, so I've always written older YAs, except the couple that I wrote with Carolyn Childs because she writes younger, and I think we kind of spelled right in the middle. Um, but I did let myself stretch a little bit with, I think, scenarios. People mentioned the fact that you don't normally see the sexy biting in YA that you see in
I was happy
Crave.
to see it. I was real happy to see it.
I really like that scene too. I was really nervous, right? I told my editor because she was getting to that scene when she's reading it. I'm like, if you think it's too much, just let me know and I'll pull it back. But it just felt like it was right. And she's like, she read it and she's like, yeah, no, this is good. I like it. You can keep it. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Because I didn't want to cut it, you know? So I pushed YA, stayed on the really, benign side. Benign, whatever you want to call it, side of new adult. But I didn't want to push it because I feel like as the mother of teenagers now, teenagers are savvy and they are smart and they have a lot more feelings than I think a lot of the gatekeepers or a lot of the publishers like to give them credit for. And I really wanted to explore that, right? I mean, it seems only fair. And I know that younger kids read up, but we put like 14 and up on it, and so I think it'll work.
Well, and it's like weird, like kind of crazy thing that's happened, and particularly with like paranormal YA romance, is that there's a huge adult readership there too. Like, I mean, do you have any idea of how much of your readership is teenage and how much is adult?
I don't know yet. I do know that, like, watching Bookstagram and stuff, it does seem that a lot of the 25, 30, 35-year-old bloggers seem to be embracing it. So that's exciting for me. And I do, but then again, on Twitter, I'm getting comments from a ton of YA readers. So seems to be running the gamut. I'm not seeing many people under 14 or 15, which makes me feel pretty good because I'm sorry, is my thing doing weird stuff? I sound weird. I'm getting feedback. Are you getting weird feedback? Do I need to do something or does it sound okay?
Every time there's a technological problem, you have to have a drink.
There you go. Here we go. I feel like that's my life, Molly. I feel like every time there's a technological problem in my life, I should have a drink too. Of course, I'd be drunk all the time.
Really good questions, and I'm gonna take a break from mine to ask some of these really great questions. Sharon Carlson Person says, "Love the cover of Crave. Did you get any say in the cover art?"
Did I get any say in the cover art? I actually did not. We really wanted to do an homage to Twilight because it was such a huge book. It did so much for romance and for YA and everything else. And 10 years forward, we wanted kind of an homage, but one that looked a little different, a little updated. And that's all I heard that they were doing. And then they gave me that cover and I was like, oh, it's so pretty. I love it so much. And they're like, well, we're thinking of me. And I'm like, no, it's fine. Don't change it.
Yeah, it's a really,
I did not get any say, but I got lucky.
Yeah.
I love it.
And you've been in the business long enough to know when you don't get lucky.
Oh yes. Oh yes. And I love it. Don't you love it?
Yeah.
When they try to fool you, like they know they're screwed, right? And they're like, we just got the cover. We love it so much. I can't wait to hear what you think. That's not like if they have a cover they actually love it. It's like, oh my God, did you see the cover? Right? If it's not, they're like, oh, we just love it so much. We're like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
You know it's awful. I know it's awful. Can't we just admit it?
Yeah, I get it. Time is not on our side, but all right. Okay. Katie Scanlon, who's a friend of mine from childhood. When you have a book when you have a book turned into a movie, do you have certain actresses and actors picked out in your head? Do you have a dream cast going?
Well, that's the interesting thing, right? I've never wanted to do that. But when we were like doing the Pinterest board for the video game before the Universal deal had even closed, they had asked, hey, we need to know what you think they look like so we can make them like that in the video game, right? I was like, oh, okay. So then we kind of like started like, and it was really interesting to find out that my editor and I had very different opinions of what they looked like. And I was like, did I do a bad job describing me? She's like, no, but in my head, I always had, I don't know if you know who Joey King is. Did you ever see The Kissing Booth on?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why, but like I always write really tall heroines. And anyway, Grace is actually really short. And I don't know that the whole time I was writing, obviously this is not universal. This is just the whole time I was writing. I just always had Joey King in my head as Grace. So she would totally be my dream. But again, I have absolutely no say or control over that. That's not me. And my editor really, really loves Douglas Booth as Jackson. She thinks he would be an amazing.
Say that again. Who?
Douglas Booth. He's a British actor.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't know. The British actors may run because Robert Pattinson had to live in fear for a lot of years. So,
the good news is there's always
be like, yeah, no, we're not doing this again.
There's always a hungry actor ready to make his mark.
That's
Mary Margaret Regan is asking, is Crave all right for a 17-year-old to read? I would say
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Sharon Carlson Person says, what are you currently reading? Are you reading? Are you able to like hold on to anything right now? Or are you I mean,
I am reading. I say I'm reading, but I've actually been reading the same book for 3 weeks, which is human. I used to be a book a day person, but all the cooking for 3 teenage boys, right? And I have my sick mother living with me, and taking care of her, and then also writing and publicity for Crave. So I've been reading the same book for 3 weeks, but it's really, really good. It's Nalini Singh's Madness of Sunshine. I don't know if you've read it yet, but it is incredible. I'm so excited. I'm almost to the black moment, and I'm like, I need it. I want to know what happened. But yeah, life.
I have been thinking about you and those 3 gigantic teenage boys of yours. I mean, I don't even want to know what your grocery bill is.
You don't want to know. I don't want to know what my grocery bill is. Like, I feel like I don't understand how it could have gone up in quarantine. Like, I mean, I used to pack them lunch and make them breakfast, and somehow, I don't know. I'm just like, this is, yeah.
Well, we're all
Crave, people. Buy Crave. I have 3 hungry boys to support.
We're all a little bored and we're all a little freaked out, and it's been a fairly outrageous experience in our kitchen, and we have the pickiest eater on the planet and an 11-year-old girl, and I still can't believe the food we're going through.
Yeah, it's and then you're like, oh, let me try something new, right? Like I'm not a fryer. My dad had high cholesterol, so by the time I was learning to cook, there was no so I'd go to fried chicken the other day. I ended up with burns. They finally healed. It's been all over me. I'm like, why did I think frying chicken was a good idea? Because normally if my oldest son wants fried chicken, I go to Bush's Chicken, but he was like, Mom, and I was like, fine, and I fell for pretty eyes, and then I suffered for 3 weeks. And I wasn't even drinking. Just to be clear, there was no day drinking with authors that day.
You did that totally sober.
My mom said, well, if you don't dress like you were in a whorehouse all the time, maybe you can your body. Fair enough.
Oh, Mom.
My mom calls it like she sees it.
Just explain your aesthetic. Oh, she knows you. She knows your aesthetic. Right. Here's a question from Holly Mortimer that you guys have done a great job with these questions. How did you pick Alaska versus California? I love the location and it feels super versatile. Also love the Northern Lights scene.
I will tell you, the Northern Lights is why I picked Alaska. I was trying to figure out where I wanted to set it, and I originally wanted to set it way up in the tundra. But we kind of went back and forth and ended up setting it near Denali. But you know how I don't know, Molly, do you do this where you have I write linearly? Do you write linearly or scenes?
Yeah. No,
linearly. I do too. I can't do the end until I get. And so anyway, but I always knew that was the scene that I just had that scene in my head. I wanted it from the very, very beginning. And so it was the little carrot I would dangle out to myself, hey, if you get through this, you're going to be able to get to that scene. Well, originally I thought it would be at this part of the book. Well, it ended up being at page 120,000 or something ridiculous in the book. And I'm it was my race to that for the first whatever. But yeah, no, that's the number one reason is I just had this scene under the Northern Lights that I really wanted to do, and Alaska seemed like a good place for that.
Yeah, really. Yeah. No, it plays into the world so perfectly. So I shoot for 20 minutes. We're coming up on 30 minutes. I guess it's 30 minutes.
You're so fun, Molly. Nobody ever wants to leave you.
So what's next? What's happening next?
What's happening next? Crush is happening next, which is the second book in the Crave series. We actually have a big Crush announcement later on today at some point. My editor will tell me when I'm allowed to go live with it. But Crush is happening next. It's what I'm finishing up writing right now, and then we'll see where we go.
The book is for those who haven't read it yet, it is a cliffhanger series, which I love. I love. I mean, it's about, well, I mean, I know there are a lot of people who don't love cliffhanger series, but like, twist me up, crumple me up, wreck me with emotion, like just make it agonizing for me. And I feel like that's what the cliffhanger does. So is it 3 books? Is it maybe more? Do you know?
It's the contract's for 3, right? We planned on Grace's story being 3 books. There is a spin-off book that we're actually talking about right now. Depending on how book 3 ends up, because we're kind of my editor and I are in negotiations about that at this very moment, where we want it to go, and so that we'll decide if there's going to be a 4th book or not, depending on what happens in the 3rd book.
Right. Well, that's really exciting stuff. Are you able to get any work done right now? I mean, I know you're living under a deadline.
I have to. I've written 3,000 words today. I've got to write 3,000 more before I can stop tonight. But no, we're in a race because my deadline is. So how deadlines sneak up on you. I don't know. I have to ask. Are you one of the disciplined writers who like write 2,000 or 3,000 words every day? Is that you?
Usually, yeah.
I love you guys. I want to be so bad.
I like to be early for a deadline. I like to be that person. I know we are very different.
I know what that means. I don't even know what that means.
Emailing pages and getting faxes back in the middle of the night is a nightmare scenario. I can never allow that. So that's it for us. We did it. It can't be so long between seeing you, sweet Tracy.
No, definitely not.
There is a dance floor. I'll be waiting for you, okay?
I will be there. Molly.
We will be awarding prizes in the comments. I know I'm not super great at that, but I will let you know, and I'll send emails on to Tracy so that she knows to send the ebooks. Thanks to everybody who's been here.
And oh my gosh, I have to say one more thing, Molly. Congratulations. I saw that your book was #1 at iTunes.
It was
the other day. That is so exciting, right? Yeah. Talk about like a bucket list moment.
It was.
So congratulations. I'm so excited. I was super happy for you. And
it was the McAvoy Sisters Book of Secrets, and it was #1 for like 18 hours. And it's funny because I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, Adam, look. And we were both like, wow. And then, because life is kind of so weird and it's also a bit of my personality, I was like ready to downplay it. And then I was like, no, actually, this has never happened and it should be celebrated.
Yeah.
But I had it for 16 hours. I like rolled around and peed on all the corners.
As you should. As you should. Absolutely. Yeah, that is like a huge accomplishment. Congratulations. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
And it's such a great book, right? I mean, your books are so amazing anyway, but that's such a great book.
You have to say that.
I don't have to say that. I mean, I don't have to say it and mean it, but I do. How's that?
I'll take it. Well, thanks for hanging out with me today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I love you.
I miss you.
And I can't wait to see you on the dance floor.
No kidding. Everybody out there, stay home, stay safe, have a drink, read a book. We'll see you next.
That's right. Take care, everybody.
Thursday, join us for Andy J. Christopher. It's going to be a good time. We're going to talk about.
I'm going to come watch that one.
Pardon?
I'm going to come watch that one. That's Thursday, right?
Yeah, Thursday. So we'll see you then, guys. Thanks.
All right.